Have you ever stopped and really, truly thought about what money is? I mean, not just what it does for you, but what actually gives it its power. It's something we use every single day, but its true nature, well, it's kind of a secret that's been hiding in plain sight. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that secret. So here's the game plan. We're going to kick things off by asking what gives money its value in the first place. That's going to lead us right into busting a huge, long-standing myth about precious metals. From there, we'll see how money is really an act of law. Then we'll get into the pretty surprising dangers of what's called free money, and wrap it all up by figuring out why a book from 1896 might just change the way you look at your wallet today. All right, let's dive right into the deep end with the biggest question of all. What actually gives money its value? It feels like a simple question, right? One we all think we know the answer to. But trust me, the reality is way more interesting. No, seriously, just take a second and think about it. What gives that piece of paper in your pocket or those numbers on your banking app the power to buy anything? What's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, the answer is probably something tangible. We think, oh, it's the gold locked away in a vault somewhere. Or maybe it's because the government promises it's worth something. And look, those are the common sense answers. But what if common sense has been leading us astray this whole time? Well, get this. Way back in 1896, a monetary historian named Alexander Delmar basically dropped a bombshell with this quote. He argued that we're all making a huge mistake. We treat value like it's a physical thing you can hold, when it's something else entirely. Nailing down this one little shift in thinking is the key to everything else we're going to talk about. And that radical idea takes us right to the heart of a belief many of us hold dear, the myth of precious metals. It's time to talk about why our obsession with gold and silver might be, well, a little bit misplaced. So the conventional view, the one we all kind of absorb by osmosis, is that value is baked right into an object. A gold coin is valuable because, it's gold. Gold is shiny, it's rare, it's hard to mine. We assume the value is locked inside the metal itself. But Delmar just flips this entire concept on its head. He says value isn't a thing at all. It's a relation. It's a ratio. It's just a numerical agreement that we, as a society, make when we trade stuff. The value isn't sitting inside the gold bar. It exists in the space between the gold bar and the loaf of bread it can buy. It's created by the act of exchange. And that has a really profound consequence. We usually assume that the cost of mining gold is what determines its price. But Delmar says, nope, it's the other way around. The monetary system sets the price, and that price is what tells miners whether it's even worth their time to dig the gold out of the ground. The system creates the value, not the material itself. So this leads to a pretty big question. If the value isn't in the metal, then where does the power of money actually come from? Well, Delmar's answer is startlingly simple, and it's backed by literally centuries of history. And there it is. This is the absolute core of his argument, a principle he pulled from ancient Roman law. Money is money simply because the state, the ultimate authority, says it is. Period. It's a legal tool, a social institution, not a shiny rock. And if you look at history, you see it everywhere. In Rome, only the state could make money. All through the Middle Ages, the real sign of a king's power wasn't his fancy crown, it was his ability to mint his own coins. And check this out. In a huge court case in Ireland in 1604, the court ruled that even coins that had been mixed with cheaper metals were still legal tender. The reason? Because the king said so. The law was more powerful than the actual metal in the coin. Here's a little tidbit that really drives it home. Even the word money tells this story. It comes from moneda, which was the name of the Roman temple that housed the state's mint. So, from its very beginning, the idea of money was tied to a central legal authority, not a free market. Okay, so if we accept that money is an institution of law, that brings up another huge question. What happens when you take that power away from the state? Delmar had a name for this idea. He called it free coinage, and he had some pretty serious warnings about where it could lead. He actually traces the whole history of this idea, which, you have to remember, was completely unthinkable for most of human history. He follows it from its beginnings in states that were rebelling against their central authority to its use as a tool of war by the Dutch, right up until it was officially made law in England in 1666. That act basically allowed private citizens to create money. So, what did he think the results were? Well, in his view, you get a financial system that starts to look a lot more like a casino. It starts to reward short term gambling and speculation over real long term business and enterprise. He saw it as this incredibly destabilizing force that chips away at the value of just doing good, honest work. For Del Mar, the whole idea of privatizing money was just as absurd as privatizing the law itself. Can you imagine a system of free policemen or pre-courts? He saw money as a fundamental public utility, just like the justice system, that has to be governed by the state for the good of everyone. Which brings us right back to today. Why on earth does an obscure book from the 1800s matter now? Because its central argument forces us to take a hard look at the very foundations of our modern economy. And this is it. This is the source of all these radical and frankly challenging ideas, the science of money. Everything we've been talking about comes from Del Mar's massive, deep dive into thousands of years of how money has worked. So, if there's one really crucial takeaway from all of this, it's this. Del Mar is asking us to make a fundamental mental shift. We need to stop seeing money as just a pile of valuable stuff and start seeing it for what he argues it truly is, a powerful piece of social technology, an institute of law that we design and build ourselves. And when we see it that way, we suddenly realize its incredible potential. In Del Mar's own words, it's a mighty engine. It's a tool that can be steered, that can be guided, but that only works if we understand that we are supposed to be the ones in the driver's seat. And that leaves us with the critical question for our time, doesn't it? In an age of digital currencies, central banks, and cryptocurrencies all wrestling for the future of finance, if money really is an act of law, then who should be writing those laws? And maybe, more importantly, for whose benefit? That's the hidden question Del Mar's work forces all of us to confront.